Okay. Namaskaram. This is the third part of the series. The next and the subsequent ones will come from October. Next month, because I will not be stationed at that time. So we'll continue this in October. The previous lectures, for those who have missed it, are available on the YouTube. And those people who are interested can go and review them, and they can, enjoy them once again. As usual, we'll start with the chants. I'll say the chant and you have to follow the chorus. Om. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Janaki Kanta Smaranam. Siyavar Ramachandra ki.
Jai.
Bolo Bharat Mata ki.
Jai.
We usually begin with a prayer. First time we began with a prayer from Ramayana. The second time we began with a prayer from Valmiki Ramayana. This time, once again, we are back to Kandam. ஒன்றாய் இரண்டு சுடராய் ஒரு மூன்றுமாகி ஒன்றாத வேதம் ஒரு நான்கொடு ஐம்பூதமாகி அன்றாகி அண்டத்தகத்தாகி புறத்துமாகி நின்றான் ஒருவன் அவன் நீழ்கழல் நெஞ்சில் வைப்பான். It is traditional to start any epic with what is called as kapu. Kapu is a sort of a invocation. It is kind of a protection that you seek from the Lord for the starting and completing the whole epic. And this is actually a part of the kapu of Ramayana. And this is profoundly philosophical in its meaning. I have tried to translate this into English verse. So what you see in blue in all these slides will be my own translation in English. Let us for our retain in our thoughts that singular Godhead. So this is the recognition of the God, the unified God, the singular God. It is not the various murtis that we worship. It is the singular God principle that is there, who manifests as the two lights of the world, who emanates in three forms as Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu, who forms the substance of the four Vedas, who makes up the five elements. So he's covered all the numbers from 1 to 5 in these. At the same time, he is also non-existent. What does that mean? It means he is so all-pervasive that you cannot perceive him as a separate object. The God principle is there in everything that is there. It is there in you, it is there in me, it is there in this chair, it is there everywhere. And that is the kind of concept that he is looking at here. And he pervades the macrocosm as well as the microcosm. All the planets, the earths, the stars, everything is one single God principle. In fact, this is very close to the present physics theories. Now, theoretical physicists are talking about what is called as unified field theory. That means it is not that there are separate forces like gravity, electromagnetism, the weak interactions, the strong interactions which play at the nuclear level that are there, but everything has been unified into a single field concept. And that single field concept is very close to the philosophical concept of an all-pervasive God principle. So this is something that has been brought out again and again by several people. Nammalvar says, if you think he exists in a particular form. If you think he does not exist, he is still there, but he is there as an unperceived form. Anuvam, that is called without a form. And this is something, this kind of duality is there. Like, in physics we say whether it's a particle or whether it is a wave. Things can be either a particle or a wave, it can be both. At the same time, it can be both. And that's where the physicists are coming very close to the philosophists or the ancient religions. So this is something which is very peculiar about our, You've seen that only, no? Right. Okay. So this is something which people of other religions find very difficult to understand. We have a concept of a God who is all-pervasive, a single God. At the same time, we worship Him in so many forms. So this duality is something that people from other religions find very, very difficult to understand. And in fact, a lot of criticism has been given about Hindu religion because of this multiple number of gods. The number of gods is supposed to be 33 crores. So if there are 33 crore gods, whom do you really worship? And we see absolutely no contradiction in this kind of monotheism and polytheism. Monotheism means worshipping one single God, and polytheism means worshipping many gods. So we can look at the Pranavanada that pervades the whole of the existence, the entire universe. That is one aspect of the God. But we can also enjoy God in these beautiful forms. And this is something that people of other religions find very difficult to understand. This is where the uniqueness of Hinduism lies. That is, we are able to do both at the same time. We are able to, for the person who is very philosophical, who has reached a very high level of consciousness, the God of single God, God principle appeals. Whereas for ordinary people like you and me, this is a God who appeals to us. And this is a form in which we worship. Right? So we'll just do a quick recap of life lessons in part 2, which we did last time. We woke up with the divinity within ourselves by singing the Suprabhatam. Then we said that from the stories that were there of whatever the deeds that we do, the responsibility solely lies on us. This is what we learned from the Ratnakara and Valmiki episode. Then we knew that it's possible for persons to transform from very evil persons to a very good person, like what Valmiki did. Then we talked about the concept of the whole world being a single family, and that is called the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we also saw that how even a learned person, even a big Maharishi can lose his temper. But then what is important is they are able to introspect, and then they are able to find out why they became angry, so that next time they will not respond in the same manner. Then we saw about how Ayodhya was planned, what was the civic planning, what was the infrastructure. Then we saw about how the wealth was equally distributed among various people, not like the communist kind of distribution, but as a kind of a very evolved distribution of wealth and education in the whole city. Then we also learned that with proper guidance, like what Dasharatha did with the guidance of Rishyasringa, you can definitely reap the fruit. And then we said that children should be a source of joy because and not a source of stress. And we also said that the Bala Leelas are only a reflection of the divine sport that the Almighty plays. Then in Rama's education, we saw what were the goals of education, and we said that attachment should not cloud our reason, and we said that that is from the story of Vishwamitra and Dasharatha. We said that the wise counsel, like Vasishtha's counsel, helps him to see beyond the immediate. If you don't have a counsel from somebody who's very wise, you will only be able to see what is immediately in front of you. You will not be able to see what is there, what lies ahead. And for that you need counsel. And we said that travel expands mind, transformation of the verse occurs in the mindscape. We saw that from the Tataka story. And then whether it's a woman, whether it's whatever may be the person, irrespective of caste, gender and all that, if they are evil, that evil calls for punishment, and that is a natural justice that is there. And then we also said from the earlier story that it may be better to pardon a transgression and not just make decisions in anger. Then from the Rama's marriage to Sita, we saw that true love is actually one soul in two bodies. And from Janaka, from the way he responds to Rama, we knew that good qualities like intelligence, dharmic conduct, courage, determination are more important than wealth. And when he gives away Sita in marriage, he says that marriage is between equal partners and its purpose is to strengthen each other in following the path of dharma. And we also saw from the Parashrama story that there is always a battle between volatility and impulsiveness within our minds and calm reason, and which should win. It was very obvious from the story. So today we start with the story after Parashrama has left. They have reached Ayodhya, and they are living in marital bliss, Rama and Sita, and that is where we take up the story today. We pick up the thread of the story from there. When Rama becomes of sufficient age, Dasharatha starts thinking. He says, I am becoming old, I have worn this crown for so long. What Valmiki says here is very, very important. What he says is that he doesn't look upon this getting the kingdom, ruling the kingdom as his right. He looks upon it as a responsibility. He doesn't act that he is entitled to it because his father was a king, therefore he becomes a king. It is not that kind of entitlement. He says, this is a heavy weight that my parents have placed on my head, and I have been bearing this weight for such a long time, and it is time that I go. I retire from this, and this is very much in alignment with the policies that are being evolved in the present governments, saying that beyond the age of 75 or 80, a person cannot hold any official post and should be only in an advisory capacity. Because at that age, he says, I have borne the Rajya Bharam. Rajya Bharam is the weight of wearing the, he says, my skin has wilted under the white umbrella. They sit under the it's called white umbrella. Sitting under that, and I feel the heat of this place. So my skin has become scorched and it's become white. So I want to take rest. So I want to appoint somebody else. And I think Rama may be a suitable person. This is what he thinks to himself. So what are those qualities of Rama that he specifically mentions? We saw a lot of qualities of Rama that were mentioned in the first part by both Narada as well as by Valmiki. So the word he uses is Prashantatma. Prashantatma means one who's got a peaceful mind. So a person who's to be a ruler should not have a tempestuous nature. He must have a peaceful mind, and that's very important for making proper decisions. Rama is a person who is ekena upakarena tushyati. That means even if somebody does one good act to him, he will always remember that, and he will. I don't know why this is moving forward on its own. Okay. And apakarenam shatamapi na smarati. That means even if you do 100 bad things to him, he will forget about it. He will remember only the good things that you have done. So these are all the qualities which were not mentioned earlier, and these are extra qualities that are becoming obvious as Rama grows up. He is viryavan nacha vishmitaha. That means he is valorous, but he is not arrogant. Anybody who becomes very courageous, very heroic, you will always see that they become arrogant. This arrogance is not there in him. Jitat Krodaha is already won over anger, and very, very importantly, he is what is called as Tira Prajna. This is also called as Stita Prajna, which is the same thing that is mentioned by Bhagavad Gita. In fact, a whole chapter, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, deals with what are the qualities of the Stita Prajna, one who has got a steadfast mind, one who is not affected too much by either sorrow or joy, one who takes an even view of everything, one who has got equanimity. And that is the most important quality that we have to learn from Rama. And then he is called as Satya Dharma Parayana. This is actually there even in the Vishnu Sahasranama. It is a Nama 870, and it means he is devoted to the path of truth and dharma. So, Sattvavan Satvika Satya Satya Dharma Parayana. This is what the Vishnu Sahasranama says. So, from all these things, we realize that the greatness of a person does not lie in how beautiful he looks, or how heroic he is, how strong he is, how much courage he got, but it lies in the virtues that he follows. And this is the most important life learning for us from this episode of Rama, where Dasharatha is recapitulating what are all the good qualities which makes him fit to be a ruler. So we can expect at least a part of these qualities from our rulers, then our country will become a really great land. But Dasharatha is actually the monarch of the whole place, or the whole country. He can take any decision he wants. There is nobody to question him. But he doesn't do it that way. He calls a council of people. And who are this council? Not just the yes men who are around him, not just the ministers who are there in his cabinet. He calls representatives from every single village, every single town. And there are also some other smaller kingdoms which are being ruled by smaller kings who all owe their allegiance to Dasharatha. So he calls all of them. And he tells them, look, I am getting old, I want to retire, and I want to appoint somebody else. Now, I think my son Rama would be a suitable person, but then you all give your opinion. That's what he says. So what he says is, this is some kind of a democratic thinking, which is there within the monarchy. It's not entirely a monarchy, he doesn't call all the shots. He takes the opinion of people and acts by it. And the people who come there, they also tell him, actually this line that is there in this verse of Valmiki Ramayana is very important. He says, why I am asking you this opinion is because I want some opposing opinions also. I don't want all of you to just agree with me. I want you to give opposing opinions. And that is because thinking by impartial, neutral people will be distinctive and well developed through grinding of opposing views. So if you don't have any opposition, any opposing views, then there will be poorer decisions. The better decisions will come when these opinions are put together in a mortar, ground together, and the best thing comes to the surface. This is exactly translation of that verse that is there. So you can see how the ancient land functioned. He also says something very philosophical, which you don't expect from a king who has got 60,000 wives. 60,003 actually. And he says, Irappu enum meemayai immai yavarkum marappu enum adanin mel kedu vatrum undo. Turappu enum teppame thunai seyyavidin pirappu enum perungadal padaikalagumo. He knows that his end is coming, and he says, everyone born is someday sure to die. Forget this and regret you would come by. Let go of attachment. It is a very most important line in this. Our life is impermanent. Let us not get too attached to anything. Let go of attachment. This is the only ship that aids across the ocean an arduous trip. And that is my translation of this Kamban's poem. So this is the kind of philosophy that Dasharatha, and now you know why Dasharatha was such a wise king. So the important thing here is that he was acting only as a custodian of the land. He is not the owner of the land. And that's very important, because even now you see the politicians, the people who are in power, not even people who are in power, even their PAs, they act as if they are so entitled to everything. That was not the way in which the country behaved in the past. So they also come up with ideas. They say, okay, we think Rama is very good because he is so close to people, he is interested in the welfare of the people. They give so many other qualities which they have observed in Rama. But then he doesn't take their opinion for granted. He says, you are saying all this only to please me, I think. Please think whether you are doing the right thing or not. Before, it's just like telling people, think before you vote. Exactly the same way, he tells his council of people, saying that you make a good decision. Don't say that because you just want to please me. And then they say, no, it's not that, it is because truly Rama is of that quality. That is why we are saying that he can become the king. And then when he calls Rama and tells him that you are going to be crowned as the Yuvaraja, and then you will be taking up the kingship from me. And there is another verse from Valmiki Ramayana which I have translated here. Look at what he says. O son, by nature you are very humble and virtuous. Even then, because of my friendship with you, note that word friendship, because of my friendship with you, I can tell you this for your benefit. Be even more humble and always keep the senses under control. Shun desire, shun wrath, that is anger. So this is very important because he is not advising him like a parent, he is advising him like a friend. And what comes from a friend is likely to be more acceptable rather than something that comes as an order from a parent. And in fact, in Tamil we say, Todukku Minjinal Todan. And that is exactly the policy which Dasharatha had followed. So the learning for us is that parents must be friends to their children, not just a figure of authority. And this we often forget when we want to discipline our children. Then he goes to Vasishtha, and Vasishtha gives him a long lecture on what are the things that a king should do. It is actually like giving a constitution. A constitution says how the state should be run, but it does not say how the person who runs the state should behave. It does not tell what the Prime Minister should behave like, what the president should behave. He just lays down the principles by which the country should be run. Whereas here, not only are those principles given, but also what is called as Rajaniti. Rajaniti means what is right for the king to do, what is not right for the king to do. A very extensive description is there. But Kamban has made a very good translation of that, and he says, Iniya Sullinan, Igayan, Enninan, Vinayan, Tuyan, Vidiniyan, Vendriyan, Ninayum Nidi Kadamaninin, Anayam Annarka Alivum Undamkolo. What it means is there defeat on earth for the ruler who speaks well, has forethought, is generous too. A man of action, virtuous, famed, victorious, never swerving from the path of the righteous. That is the Dharma's path. This is what is stressed repeatedly throughout the epic. So this is Vasishta's teaching, because he is the Kula Guru and he is the position to instruct her. He has been the Guru to even Dasharatha. So naturally, Rama places a lot of premium on this advice that he gets. So these are the real principles of Rajaniti, and even if a fraction of these can be followed by our leaders, as I said, our country would become a great country. Then of course, a lot of things happen. The people rejoice in the town. The one person who is not happy about this is the Mantara, and she's also called Kuni in Tamil, because she's got a hunchback. I think it's better to call her Mantara, not because nowadays it's not right to call persons by their disabilities. But in ancient days, it was the term that was used. So now she has got a grudge to, against Rama. And what is this grudge? I believe when Rama was a young boy, he was doing shooting practice with his arrows. Those arrows were not harmful arrows because they are just mud balls that are fixed to the arrow. So even if it hits the target, it's not going to really hurt because it's a mud ball. And when Kuni was passing by one day, he is supposed to have hit her hunchback, looking at that as a target. A young boy's game, you can say. And the pot of water that she was carrying fell down, and people laugh, and so she becomes really angry. And then this grudge she carries for many years inside her. So, and the Kambaramanam says, Tondai vai kege in togai koil me mandinal. She comes to Kaikeyi's palace. Koil is palace here. Koil. Reguli in Madita Vainal, Pandainal, Ragavan Panivil Umil, Pandainal, Andre, in Iniko. Ragavan Panivil Umil, Undai, Undatanai, Tan Ullattu Ulluvad. She is still carrying that grudge inside her heart. It is not the hurt that matters. It is the pain due to the hurt ego that is more important, more severe, and it lasts much longer than the physical hurt from the body. So this is the story, but the Alvars have taken a different take on this. When Nammalvar talks about this, I think that's the only place where this incident is mentioned in the whole of the Divya Prabandham. And he says, Kune Side Undai vil Nirathil Theritai Govinda. Undai Villal Kune Editai, that means you hit the hunchback with your playful arrow. But who did it? Govinda did it. It is not Rama. Because he thinks Rama is so pure, unsullied. He cannot do such a rash act. It is only Govinda, only Krishna, who will play all these childish games. And so he says, this is done by Govinda and not by Rama. So that is the beauty of Alvar's poem. And here also we must, another learning for us is that the children must be taught not to make fun of the differently abled. This is becoming very important in the current educational system, that the differently abled people are absorbed into the same system and they are not kept as a separate class and looked upon as strange beings. This is a very important learning for us from this particular episode. When Mantara comes and tells Kaikeyi, look, your position will be reduced to a servant, a slave, when Rama becomes a king, because you and Bharata will become insignificant in the whole order of things. And Kaikeyi does not listen to it, because for Kaikeyi, Rama is a pet son. It's like he is like another son. So initially, she refutes all the claims made by Kuni. And there is a beautiful song in Ramanataka Kirtana, I told you this in the first part, where the entire Ramayana is written only as songs, which can be performed on stage because there are some passages in between and then there are some songs. One of the songs I played for you. Can you hear? Is this mic working? So what she says is, if Rama is crowned as a king, nanmai undu. Everything good will happen. Nothing bad will happen. You are just a fool. What is this useless talk that you are giving? It's very nice that Rama is going to be the king. This song is actually from a movie. I forget the name of the movie. It's by Ramakrishna. As a kacheri song it is played. So you can see how, I think the movie came out sometime in the 1960s. So she says, this is the Rama who won over Parashurama, and that he is the eldest, he is the one who got the right to the throne. So it is the best thing that can happen to us. That's what she says in this particular song. But then, persistently when she is brainwashed by Mantara, she yields and her mind changes. So you can see that if there is evil influence, your mind can change. What does she actually portray? Nothing bad is going to happen if Rama becomes a king. If Rama becomes a king, Kaikeyi will also be in an exalted position because he considers Kaikeyi as his own mother. But then, there is a false narrative that she is spreading. And this is a very important lesson for us. Every day on the social media, there is so much of false narrative that is being targeted towards all sorts of people. And we find that many people fall towards these false narratives, which is how you find jihadists and all those people coming up. False narratives are being spread. And if you keep on saying it again and again, again and again, even a good mind can get influenced, it can become a bad mind. And that is the important thing that we learn from this particular episode. So finally, the king goes to Kaikeyi's place. She's in the Kopagraha, and she's saying that she's not happy, and obviously she's in distress. The king wants to do anything to please her because she's the most dear wife of... and at this time, the king blurts out a promise. And he says, whatever you want I will do on the name of my son Rama. So this is a promise that he gives immediately. So this is an important thing for us. We should not make wild promises which we may not be able to keep. We must always think before making promises to people. And then finally, he has to agree because he has to agree to make Bharata the king, and then he has to send Rama to exile. He pleads with her at least to keep Rama with him. Let Bharata become king. Let him rule the world. But let Rama stay over here. Why do you want to separate me from him? And because her mind has been so poisoned, Kaikeyi says, no way. Rama has to go, and you have to keep up the 2 words that you have given to me sometime in the past. Now, who has to break the news to Rama that he has to go to the forest? He cannot be the king the next day or that morning. That morning he's called in, he says, and Kaikeyi actually breaks the news. It's not Dasharatha. He doesn't have the heart to tell his son, you go to the forest. So he says, Avishul Ulagamellam Bharatane Alani Poi Tar Irum Chavaigal Tangi Tangarum Tamir Kunde Puri Ven Kanam Nandi Kundia Turegaladi Yerendu Andil Va in the Yambin Arasan. So this is what Kaikeyi says. What does she say? She wants to sort of sugarcoat that bitter pill. The bitter pill is you have to go to the forest. But what does she say? She says, and for 14 years. And what does she say? She says, you can go there, you can practice austerities, you can go to a lot of holy places, you can take bath in a lot of holy rivers, You can see the whole country. You will become enriched by that experience. And you're going to come back in 72 years. That's all. Not 14 years. Because it looks very long if you say 14 years, you know. So he says 72 years. So this is a lesson for doctors here on how to break bad news. You have to tell the truth. There's no way of not telling the truth. But then you have to put it in such a way that it is sort of acceptable. It does not cause a sort of a storm inside the patient in the person's mind who's hearing this. And that is the important lesson for us. We all have to become experts like Kaikeyi. Even from a person like Kaikeyi, we can have life lessons to learn. And how does Rama react to this? His only distress is that his father is not speaking to him at all, because his father is so distressed. That's the only thing that bothers him. The fact that he has to leave the kingdom and he has to go to the forest and all that does not bother him at all. And look how Kambar puts it. Can we describe how Rama felt that way? Can we say it now? Yarum Shepparum Punathu Raman Tirumuga Chebi Nokil Oppade Mundu Pimbu Avasam Mudara Keta Apollo Aran the Sindamare Vendradama. Before and after, before he heard the news that he has to go to the forest, and after he heard the news that he has to go to the forest, his face was looking just like a freshly, blossoming lotus. How beautiful that would look. Exactly the same charm, the same calmness, everything was there on his face. Nothing changed because such a groundbreaking thing has been told to him. So this is how we have to train our minds to receive bad news. So that is the lesson for us, and that means basically we are stressing on what is called as equanimity. So again we come back to that old statement of Sthita Prajna, the one who has a constant even mind. He is not affected too much by sorrow. I mean, every human being will be affected, but does it show? Does it reflect on your mood, your activities? That is what is important. It's not that it will not hit you mentally, it will hit you mentally, but then it should not lead to an unnecessary reaction. And that is what is being preached by this episode. Then of course they have to take the leave of the king in the palace, and then all the queens. A lot of things happen there, and finally they have to leave for the forest. The people of the country are so attached to their Rama that they also want to go along with this. And here there is a beautiful description by, I have quoted the original from Valmiki Ramayana. What he says is even the trees that are there, even they wanted to accompany Rama and go, just like the people who are moving along with Rama. All the people of Ayodhya are following him to the forest. Even the trees want to go, but they are bound by their roots. Because they are bound by the roots, they can only bend their heads and they can express their support for Rama. And this is what exactly this particular thing means. And what it tells us is that there is a lot of value in symbolic gestures. Like with the recent episode that was there in the R.G. Medical College in Kolkata, the whole nation rose up. There were flag marches that were held, people wore black bands everywhere, in places which are unconnected to Kolkata. Why did this happen? This is because there is a symbolism in the protest. This, what the trees are doing is exactly the same form of symbolism. And symbolic things are very important to a refined society. We cannot actually go and do anything to wipe the tears of those poor parents of that lady doctor. But at least we can express solidarity. Symbolic actions, they are not meaningless actions. They are very important actions, and they are things which go a long way in making us a refined society. And then they all sleep at night. Lakshmana makes a bed of grasses. This man was slept on such beautiful beds in the palace, now has to sleep under the tree in the forest on the banks of the Tamasa river on a bed of grass. And then they wake up early and then they plan how to get rid of the people who are following him to the forest, because there is no point in reasoning with them. How much ever you reason, because of their love for Rama, they will say, we want to come to the forest with you. So you have to beat them only by strategy. And what is the strategy that he was? He says, you take the chariot and make the path towards Ayodhya. Once you make the path towards Ayodhya, people will wake up in the morning and they will see that the chariot has gone back, and so they will think that Rama has gone back to Ayodhya. So this is a strategy that Rama was. Is this deceit? There is a lot of difference between deceit and strategy. Strategy is not deceit. This is for a good aim. Deceit is for a bad aim. So the aim is what is important when you distinguish between deceit and strategy. So that has got a very important role in people management. You don't hurt anybody, you achieve your aims, and it's good for everybody for them to return, because all the people cannot come to the forest. They have to go back and look after their children, they have to look after their cattle and their lands and everything. And then they depart before all these people wake up. They cross the Tavasa river and they go to the opposite side, to the forest. And the people who are sleeping blissfully are not aware of Rama having gone away. Then they look at the tracks of the chariot. Then they say that, okay, they said, oh, this is correct, Rama has gone back. Let's be joyfully go back to Ayodhya. Only when they go back to Ayodhya, they realize that he has not come back, only the chariot has come back. So it is a human tendency to be hopeful, even in the worst of circumstances. We look for the littlest possible sort of thing that will bolster our hope. And that's the human tendency, and that's what is brought out in this particular tale. Then of course they go to the Ganga. The Ganga is flowing like a mighty ocean, and they won't be able to cross it without help. So Rama sits there, and then this person called Guha comes over. There's a very wide difference between how Guha is treated in Valmiki and in Kamman. For Valmiki, he is only a king of the Nishadas. Nishadas are the people who are tribes which are living over there. But he is already known to Rama, and so there's no need for any introduction. He is already known, and he comes and offers help. That's all is the story. Very simple and plain story. But for Kamman, it's not like that. He's painted as a person who's a real tribal. You can see the picture that is there. So this kind of a person who's totally different from the royal personage of Rama. And when he comes with all his, leather chappals and leather dresses and everything, and with all his, Lakshmana becomes very suspicious of this person. He thinks he is somebody who's come to harm Rama. That is because he doesn't have the full knowledge. He doesn't have the patience to think. So he thinks that he is going to be harmed by Rama, and then when he really, Rama tells him, no, he may be a good person, you can go and find out. Then they find out that his intentions are very noble. He gives them a lot of gifts. He makes them stay. In fact, he tells them, you don't have to go away to the forest. You can stay on the banks of Ganga over here. And then you can go back to Ayodhya after 14 years. You can keep your promise to your father, as well as not suffer too much with your wife in the forest. All these are made. So, the important thing for us to learn from here is that we do not judge a person by just his external appearance. We have got to get acquainted with the person's nature, his speech, his words, his action, and only then we really can make a proper judgment about a person, and not just by the way he looks, not by his color, not by his clothes, not by his outward bearing. And finally, the friendship becomes so much that Kamman says, "En uyir anayani ilavan un ilayan." My younger brother is also your younger brother. That means I am accepting you as my brother. In Nannudalal nin ke, which means my wife is your babi, your Anni. And that is the kind of importance that he gives to a person who is from what is perceived as a lower class of society. And that is the greatness of Rama. He is able to transcend all those barriers. The true friendship really transcends all barriers. And he goes to the extent of embracing him and telling him. And at that time, there is a very philosophical thing that Rama says, and it's very important for us to learn this. Tunbu budadu enin andro sugam budadu. How do you enjoy something that is there in your life? Only when you feel the lack of it. Tamil, we say, Niran Arivai. If there was no sun, you would not be able to enjoy the shade. That's what exactly it means. Tunbu udadu enin endro sugam udadu, adu andri pinbu udadu, idai mannum pirivu udadu. So, coming together and parting are all natural in this world. Everything will happen. We are very close friends for 10 years, then we'll have to part. There may be some time when we can come back and meet each other, but then parting is always there. When children grow up, they have to part from the parents. So, and when we finish school, we depart from our teachers whom we love so much. So, parting is there everywhere. Mundu Udayam oru naalven. We were only 4 when we were born, the Rama and 3 brothers. Mudi Udadi Enavula, Anbu Udaini, because there is love between us, now we become 5. We were born 4, but now we have become 5 brothers. So that is the kind of extent to which he feels for Guha. So what is the important lesson for us is that sorrow and joy, togetherness and separation, they are never permanent. They're always going around like a cycle. So what goes up has to come down, and we have to be prepared for this cycle of sorrow and joy, togetherness and separation in our lives. Then they come to the cross the Ganga, and this episode is not there in Valmiki Ramayana or in Kampa Ramayana, but a later Ramayana, Tulsi Ramayana, talks very much about this boatman who makes them cross the river actually. So when he wants to get into the boat, the boatman says, you have to wash your feet before you get into my boat. Why does he say this? And people have interpreted it as saying that Rama's dust from Rama's foot touched a stone and it turned into a woman. So if this boat also turns into a woman, what would I do for my livelihood? This is a simple interpretation, but that is not actually the interpretation. In fact, Tulsi also doesn't talk about this. These are later interpretations of Tulsi Ramayana. He says, I have to wash your feet because he wants to get an opportunity to touch the feet of the Lord. And that is the reason why he says, I have to wash your feet. It's the excuse that he gives. Okay, Rama agrees, and then he washes his feet, and then all 3 of them get into the boat. And when they cross the river, because of the boatman, Sita takes out a ring and gives it to the boatman as a fee for making them cross the river. And this man says, no, I will not accept a fee. Why will I not accept a fee? He refused to take a fee because we do the same profession. I make people cross the river. You make people cross the samsara sagara, the cycle of births and deaths, the ocean of birth and deaths. You make them cross it. So, you are also a boatman, I am also a boatman. I won't take fees from another boatman. Why is this running like this? Okay. So this is again an important lesson for us. Oops. Doctors seeing other doctors, their spouses or dependent children as private patients have generally charged no fee. Charging between professional colleagues has been regarded as undignified, unpleasant and unseemly. This is there in editorial in the British Medical Journal. These are exact words which are quoted from the editorial in British Medical Journal. So you can see that this boatman has got such a simple faith, He's not very literate, he's not a very educated person, but he's got such a simple faith. And even last time when I ended my talk, I talked about the importance of having faith. And that is what is brought out by the simple boatman. And it also gives us a lesson in professional ethics. Then finally Bharata comes back to the country and then he learns of all the things that have happened in his absence. And then he is very angry with his mother. But then Vasishtha counsels him saying that you have to take up the kingdom because the kingdom cannot be remain without a king. He says, no, I have to first go and ask my brother, I have to go and ask him to come back. So he takes the journey all the way from Ayodhya. He also sees Guha, but when Guha sees him from a distance coming with a big army, he also gets suspicious. He becomes very suspicious. So we see 3 instances of suspicion, unnecessary suspicion. First we saw the suspicion that Lakshmana had about Guha. Then we saw the suspicion that Guha had about the intentions of Bharata. And only when he comes close and sees Bharata in so much of anguish because his brother has left him and gone, he doesn't want to take up the kingdom, he wants his brother to come back. He realizes all that, and only then Guha realizes what a good heart Bharata has got. So initially there is suspicion, but once you get to know the person, the suspicion goes away. Same thing happens after with the help of the boatman and with Guha's boat people. They cross Ganga, they come to Chitrakuta where Rama is staying, and then Lakshmana sees a big army approaching from there, and then Lakshmana also becomes very suspicious. He says, look, this is Bharata's flag that I see. Bharata is probably coming to finish you off. And he gets unnecessarily paranoid about Bharata's intentions. But then Rama tells him something. He is a part of me. Bharata is not a person separate from me. He is a part of me. We are born from the same seed. And so, he cannot be wrong. I know Bharata is a good person. So, let us wait and see what happens. So, he actually counsels Lakshmana not to go to war with Bharata. and says Bharata must be having some good intention. So needless suspicion leads to rash and irrational conclusions. And unless you get sane counsel, it may lead to inappropriate action. When Lakshmana was suspicious about Guha, it was Rama who gave the counsel. When Guha was suspicious about Bharata, it was Sumantara who gave the counsel to Guha. Because Sumantara is already known to him when he came first time to the forest. When Lakshmana becomes suspicious about Bharata, he gets the counsel from Rama. So if you have good counsel, all these unnecessary paranoid suspicions will vanish and you will have appropriate action. And that is the learning for us from this episode. And finally, once they meet, he realizes that he has lost his father. Father has already died, and that he feels very sad that he was not present by the side of his father when he died. So he does the last rites for his father in the Mandakini river, which even now flows near Chitrakoot, which is there in the Satna district of Madhya Pradesh, just on the other side of the Ganga. So there are 3 times when Rama is said to have cried in anguish. He is a Chitta Prajna. Sorrow or joy does not affect him. But even to such a person, when there is extreme misery, he sheds tears, because in this whole Ramayana story, Valmiki and most of the time Kamban also portray him as a human being with exceptional qualities. So a human being is not, is not immune entirely to the emotions. And so there are 3 times when Rama is said to have cried. One is when he heard that his father has died. Second is when he is separated from Sita in the forest, which we will see in the next episode. And lastly, during the war, when Lakshmana dies, not dies, but he is apparently dead from Indrajit's arrows. At that time, he sees his dear brother gone. He sees the empty, lifeless body and he is restored to life by Hanuman's actions. That's a different story. We'll cover it later. But then, at that time, he says, I may get 1,000 Sitas, but will I get a brother like Lakshmana? So he becomes very sad, he sheds tears. Actually, the tears are described by Valmiki in all these 3 situations. So I just made a song called The Weeping of Rama. So it says, Tuyaram nerdal nida more gati. For us, if we are sad, our only solace is in God. Tuyaram nerdal nida more gati. Dayaratanaya Piriva Chamaya Niye Kankalangina. Nayen in saying, what will I do? If you yourself start shedding tears, what will I do? Vindagam Tandai Sendradai Ketadum, Dandagavanathil Sidaye Pirindazum, Mandide Wind the Wumbi in Budanam, Kandadum, Vedane Kadale Murgi, Niye Kankalangina, Nayen in saving. This is the essence of this song which I composed in Mukari Raga. Mukari is a raga that is supposed to be, a raga of pathos. So that is the reason why this particular song is set in this raga. Then there is also another episode which is there only in Valmiki Ramayana, is the last part of this talk today. And this is about a person called Jabali. Jabali is a very great Maharishi. He lived in this area which is now called Jabalpur. And the Jabalpur is called by that name because of Jabali. And this man is very learned in the Vedas, but he does not believe that Vedas represent everything that is truth. He says, what is truth is only what you are seeing with your eyes, not what is beyond what is your capacity to perceive. So it is a kind of a materialistic view. And he tries to tell Rama, why are you grieving for your father? After all, what is your father? His contribution is one sperm. And that sperm is united with the ovum, and you have been born. This is what he says, and you can see in the shloka, with what this means is, it says how a baby is born by the union of the sperm and the ovum in the mother's uterus. And that's exactly the kind of understanding that people had in those ancient times about facts of biology, which we think are very modern. They had that kind of understanding of this. So he says, after all, that's it. Who is your father? After he has given birth to you, he is nothing to you. And he is dead and gone. Is he going to come back? Just because you are making all these oblations, you are giving all these food away, etc. Is he going to come back? Is a dead man going to eat? He is not going to eat. Why do Shraddha for him? This is the kind of view that he expresses. He says, what is real is only what is existing today. So you go back to your country, you rule, you be happy. You make your people happy. Do your duty in this world as it exists today. Don't think about the other world. So this is the kind of view that the learned Maharishi says. It is not it is a Nastika view, of course I agree, but it is not a Nastika view that comes from a person of no knowledge. He is a very respected Maharishi, right? And so Rama also counters him, and he says, what he says really means that Dharma is the basis for the entire happiness, not only in this world but in all other worlds, and therefore we have to go by the path of Dharma. We cannot swerve from it. And when my father tells me I have to go to the forest, I have got to go to the forest. I cannot go back to the land. And this is what is important. Materialism and spiritualism, they coexisted. There was a peaceful coexistence. Nowadays it is actually a battle between materialism and spiritualism. But these coexisted well in those days, in the ancient Bharat. And Hindu Dharma accorded importance to dissent. It's not that saying that, okay, you don't believe in my God, you ought to be killed. That is not the policy. You don't believe in my God, you are not fit, you will not enter heaven. That is not the policy. The policy is all kinds of views are tolerated. Those who like God, those who don't like God, those who worship God, those who do not worship God, those who do rituals, those who don't do rituals. All of them have got a place under this big umbrella called the Vedic religion, the Sanatana Dharma. And that is the most important thing that we have to understand. And a healthy debate, like that, what went on between Jabali and Rama, is a sign of a mature society. If there is no maturity in the society, this will lead to fights, it will lead to rancor, it will lead to emotions. It will not be a healthy debate. And that wherever we see that such a thing is happening, we should try to encourage healthy debate. And that is what will make us a mature society. So finally, Bharata says he has to accept that he has to go back to the country, and he says, at least give me your sandals. The sandals are given, the sandals are taken on his head, and he takes them back. He does not go and sit in the throne where Dasharatha sat or where Rama is going to sit in the future, but he stays in a place that is just outside called Nandigramam. And in Nandigramam he runs the whole country from there. But he is living the life of an ascetic, just like Rama. He is wearing the same bark, he is eating the same roots, same vegetables, same fruits which Rama would be eating. He is not eating all those 4-course dinners that are there in the palace. He is giving up on all his pleasantries of life just because his brother is also suffering over there. And he, in fact, Bharata's ruling of the country is said to have been even more superior to the Rama Rajya that comes later because of the excellent qualities of this person called Bharata. So with that, the Ayodhya Kandam comes to an end, and that is him accepting the sandals. So I end my talk by showing a good Utsava Murti from some temple. Once I showed you Vadavur, next I showed you from Tillai Vilagam. This is from Dinamala. Dinamala runs an entire web portrait where temples of Tamil Nadu are all celebrated. You get good pictures over there. This is from the Utsava Murti of Ramaswamy temple in Kumbakonam. In fact, we don't have a picture. You are not supposed to take pictures of the Moola Vigraham. Moola Vigraham pictures do not come out in the public arena because they are so sacred that you have to go actually there and visit and see and get the pleasure. And the Moola Vigraham is simply a pleasure to behold because it is so huge, so majestic, and it is. If you cannot visit Ayodhya, you can visit over here. This is like visiting Ayodhya. He is sitting in like in a darbar, He is standing actually near his throne with all the people who are there around him. And such a beautiful view of this Ramaswamy from the temples built by the Nayakas and the temples that have been in continuous use and worship for the last 500-600 years. So just can anybody identify the tune of this song? Navil Kurusi Tandidum Namam. Nanmai Varaya Cheyum Namam. Can you get the tune? Khatrinlai Varum Geetam tune. So exactly the same tune has been modified for this. The person who is singing this is my elder sister. She is 70 years old. And that is her voice. நாடின எண்ணம் கைகூடும். மனக்கவலைகளை மாற்றிடும் நாமம். Namaskaram. The next episode will be in October, not in September. See you.